In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to become a real shot maker in pool. Imagine you're playing pool, your positional game is on spot, you're very good at kicking and banking, your safety game isn't bad either, and the only thing is, from time to time, you're missing balls that you just shouldn't miss. Now imagine you're playing against a player whose positional game isn't as good as yours, his safety game is okay, and he's not that good in banking or kicking. But this guy is a real shot maker. He's making balls from everywhere and he seems never to miss a shot. And that's why he wins against you, because he's just better at making balls. So the key thing if you want to be successful in billiards is just don't miss. Of course it's okay to not take a shot because maybe it's too difficult and play safe instead. Yeah, that's totally fine. But missing just isn't allowed, because at a certain level in pool, usually the guy who misses less balls wins the whole match. So let's break the whole thing down. What is a shot maker? A shot maker is a player who makes balls constantly. And what do you have to do to make several balls in a row? Make one ball at a time. So this video will just show you how to make a ball. Of course, it will show you a little more than that. Because there are so many things that you are maybe doing wrong and so many things you have to take care of. But if you do all these things that I tell you, you will make balls constantly and even the tough ones. So how to make a ball? I broke this down into 2 steps. The first step is you have to know where you want to hit the object ball. Because even if you have a perfect straight shot, but you don't aim to the correct spot at the object ball, you will just miss the shot. There are a lot of aiming techniques out there. The most common technique is the ghost ball. When I started playing pool, I used this method. Nowadays I just automatically know where I have to aim. I will show you that technique in a minute. Another system, for example, is center to edge. Or you can even aim with shadows that are thrown from the object ball onto the table. Or Shane from Boening, for example, uses a shaft to aim correctly. Yeah, you just have to find the right system that works for you. But what all these systems have in common, they will show you where you have to send the cue ball in addition to hit the correct spot at the object ball. Now I'm gonna show you real quick how the ghost ball method works. Remember, all of the aiming systems that are out there lead to the same thing, that you hit the right point on the object ball in order to make it. So, if you want to make the 9 ball into the corner pocket in this case, you can use all systems and they will all have the same result, that you hit the 9 ball at this point. This right here is the contact point. But how you do find this point with the ghost ball? If the cue ball, in this case our ghost ball, the 9 ball and the heart of the pocket are all in a straight line, you just have to look where the cue ball and the 9 ball are touching and you have your contact point. But attention, with the ghost ball method you don't actually aim towards the contact point, because what would happen is you would hit the 9 ball right here if you came from this side. Or if you came from this side with the cue ball, you would hit the 9 ball right here. So please don't aim at the contact point. You aim at the center of the ghost ball, because if you aim at that point, the contact point will always be the same, no matter from what direction your cue ball is coming. You always want to hit that exact point at the object ball. Only if you make contact with this point, the ball is gonna go into the side pocket. That's the ghost ball system. To use the system correctly, you need a good imagination and a good visualization. For example, the size of the ghost ball is very important, that you have the correct aiming point. Use whatever system fits you the best, you just gotta try it. But as I said, knowing where to send the cue ball is essentially in making balls. So look for a system, work on it, improve it, repeat it until you don't have to think about where to hit anymore. If you accomplish that, there comes the second very important part of making balls. Send the cue ball to the contact point. Just only knowing where the contact point is isn't enough. You need to be able to send the cue ball to that exact point. I split that part into 2 subcategories. In the first category are things you are doing even before you go down to a shot. In the second category are things you have to take care of while you are down at the shot, and finally shoot the ball. Let's begin with 2.1. Before you go down, of course, you should make a plan. That means where the cue ball should go after you made the object ball, or in general, what should happen on the table. You do that at every shot, even if it's the last ball on the table. For a pool player, that should just be normal. Then visualize everything. I don't say much about visualization in this video because I already made a lesson for that. The main message is visualizing supports the right outcome. If you're visualizing things, your brain will see the pictures and try to reproduce these pictures. So it's more likely that your plan works out. I will give you the link at the end of this video. Then there is the so-called baseline. The baseline term comes from snooker. It basically means how you walk into the shot. Imagine a straight line from the contact point on the object ball to the cue ball to the hand that you're holding your cue in. You then walk into the shot and never leave this line with your hand. May sound a little complicated, but don't worry, there is a great training video from Eckert in the description. Of course, the stance is also very important. You virtually aim the shot with your stance. I'm not gonna teach you the correct stance because there are so many good videos out there, and I will give you the link to my favorite in the description. Last but not least, you need the correct eye alignment, and that's a very important part that a lot of players do wrong. And if you do that wrong, it can ruin your whole putting game. What do I mean with eye alignment? Every beginner usually puts the cue exactly under his chin, so that the cue is in the middle of his two eyes, just because that's common. But just because it's common doesn't mean that this is right for you. But now comes the dangerous part. Imagine the following scenario. A little more experienced player comes around and asks if you have ever made the dominant eye test. Before I go further, we will do the dominant eye test together. The first step is to form a triangle with your hands. The second step is look for an object in the room that is far away. Now focus on that object. Close now your right eye. If the object stays in the triangle, that means you are looking at the object with your left eye and your left eye dominant. The object shifts, that means you were looking with your right eye on the object, you closed your right eye, you don't see it anymore, your right eye dominant. So you did this test with the more experienced player and found out that your left eye is dominant. Because of that, he tells you to put the cue exactly under the left eye. And that's where the trouble starts. Being left or right eye dominant doesn't mean that you have to put the cue exactly under this eye. Dominant doesn't mean that this eye is stronger than the other. Your brain just prefers to use this eye. It would be too simple to just put it under the dominant eye. There are too many factors that come into play. For example, if you have your head straight, if you have it in a slight angle. Look at this picture of Ronnie O'Sullivan. His head isn't straight, he has it a little bit turned. That affects your eye alignment. Another factor is how strong each eye is. As I said, dominant doesn't mean stronger. Here's Niels Fayen. His left eye only has about 10% eyesight. That's why the cue is so far to the right. Another factor that you can't even see or feel is how the both 2D images from each eye are put together by your brain. Yeah, there are so many factors. So please don't put the cue exactly under your dominant eye. Don't get me wrong, I personally have my cue exactly under my dominant eye. But I don't do this because it's my dominant eye. I do this because of the following way to find the perfect eye alignment. To find your eye alignment, just set up a perfectly straight shot. Then you go down on the shot as usually. While you're down, you move your head from the center to both sides and see what feels right for your brain. If you're left eye dominant, of course, your eye alignment tends to be somewhere on the left side and vice versa. So in our case, this position does absolutely not feel right. The shot doesn't look straight, so we move our head to the other side, because we are left eye dominant. At some point, the shot will look correct and straight for your brain. If you have this point, then you have found the right eye alignment. Make sure that this is really the right point and shoot the straight shot several times. You can also try to shoot this shot with the wrong eye alignment just to see what happens. The right alignment is key to become a great shot maker. If you don't have the right alignment, your body and your brain will always try to compensate things. This might works for easy shots and from time to time for harder shots, but you wanna make all of the shots. That's why the right technique is key to become a shot maker. And that's why we're now gonna talk about the things you do while you're down at the shot and when you're shooting. Here I have the most important things to do when you're shooting a ball. A loose wrist is very important. You should not use any muscles in your wrist. Just hold the cue with your hand, not too tight but also not too loose. The wrist is just the passive part while shooting. Then there is another important thing that you have to do with your eyes, the eye pattern. Everyone should know that when you're down at the shot, you always switch from looking at the object ball to the cue ball to make sure that you will hit the right point on the cue ball, back to the object ball, back to the cue ball, and so on. You do that for a while until you feel comfortable. Then before hitting the cue ball, you just look at the object ball. Focus on the ball and then finally pull the trigger. This is the eye pattern that you should use when you're shooting. Another thing when shooting is don't move and stay down. The only thing that should move when you're down at the shot are of course your eyes and then only your arm. The rest of the body is as still as possible. You don't want to have any factors that disturb a straight stroke. That means also staying down at the shot and don't jumping up while pulling the trigger. The only shot where you do that is the break shot, like shown in this slow-mo video. Here you can also see what follow through is. Don't stop your cue when you hit the cue ball, no, follow through the ball. This will lead to a straighter shot. It lowers deflection and it will give your shot more quality. The last thing that is also very important, be 100% convinced of what you're doing. If there is any doubt in your mind, don't shoot the ball. Because that doubt means you're visualizing that you won't make the shot. And if there is any doubt, your brain gives you the signal that obviously something just isn't right. So stand up, do your pre-shot routine from the beginning and do that until you're 100% sure that you're gonna make the shot. Well, that were really a lot of things that I told you in this video, but becoming a real shot maker is a tough way, and only because you now know all these things doesn't mean that you will become a shot maker in only 1 week. I know all this stuff and I'm still far away from the consistency that I would like to have in putting balls. So train these things, do drills, analyze where your problems are, and you will get better and better at making balls and in developing a nice, solid and straight stroke. And if you develop that stroke, you will maybe be able to do what Mark Williams was doing in this video of the World Snooker Championship. By the way, closing your eyes and then shooting is a very good way to test your cueing and how much you can trust in this cueing. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Leave me a thumbs up or even a comment and subscribe. Here is the link to the video about visualization that I mentioned. In the other video you can learn how to break and run a rack of 9 ball. Take care, we'll see you at the next video.